Gabriel Carter. A simple, honest deliverman. Patient. Hardworking. A man who asked for nothing from this world except a chance. A fair chance, to build something good with his own two hands. He wasn't rich. He wasn't powerful. But he had a kind heart, a quiet strength, and a love for his wife that most men could only dream of having. But one ordinary morning, on what looked like just another delivery run, Gabriel walked through a door he could never walk back through. And what he saw on the other side of that door did not just break his heart. It changed everything he knew about the woman he had married. Hello friends. Welcome to our story. Before we start, please like this video and subscribe. Also, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Florida? London? Maybe South Africa or Jamaica? We want to know. Gabriel was 30 years old, and he lived in a small apartment on a noisy street in the loud, crowded, never-sleeping heart of the city. The apartment was not much to look at. The walls had a damp patch near the window that spread a little wider every time it rained. The ceiling fan wobbled when it spun too fast. The wardrobe door didn't close properly unless you pushed it just right and held it there for a second. And even then, it sometimes swung back open on its own as if it had given up trying. But Gabriel kept that apartment clean. That was the one thing he could control. The floor was always swept. The dishes were always washed. The small kitchen counter was always wiped down, even on the mornings when there was barely any food on it. He worked for a company called Quick Run Delivery Services. Every morning, before the sun had fully decided to come up, Gabriel was already on his feet, drinking weak tea from a reused tea bag, strapping on his delivery bag, and checking the Quick Run app on his phone for the first orders of the day. He rode a motorcycle, a second-hand one that had seen better years, with a side mirror held in place by black electrical tape and an engine that coughed a little on cold mornings before finding its rhythm. The job was hard in ways that were difficult to explain to people who had never done it. It wasn't just the riding. It wasn't just the sun beating down on him through his helmet, or the rain soaking through his jacket on days when the sky decided without warning to pour itself out over the city. It was the other things. The customer who was never home, no matter how many times you called. The order that got canceled while you were already halfway across town, with no payment for the time and fuel you had already spent. The people who opened their doors, took their packages, and shut the door again without so much as a nod, as if Gabriel were not a person but a machine that delivered things, and machines did not need to be thanked. He had learned not to take it personally. That was something he had decided early on. The job was the job and people were people, and mixing the two together in your chest was a good way to make yourself miserable. But his honesty, that was the thing people who knew him always talked about. When he found extra money accidentally stuffed into a package that had been poorly sealed, he reported it. When a customer handed him a large bill by mistake and walked away, Gabriel got back on his motorcycle and chased them down the road to return the change. His manager, a short restless man named Mr. Peters who was always looking at his watch, would shake his head slowly and say, "Gabriel, you are too good for this job." Gabriel never quite knew what to do with that sentence. He had met his wife, Veronica, 3 years ago, on a hot Tuesday afternoon at a bus stop near the market. They had both been waiting for the same bus. She was wearing a yellow dress and reading something on her phone, and Gabriel had noticed her the way you notice something bright in a gray place. Not because he was looking but because it was impossible not to. The bus had been very late. They had started talking, first about the bus, then about the heat, then about the city and how it never seemed to sleep. And by the time the bus finally arrived, Gabriel had felt something shift quietly in his chest. That particular feeling of meeting someone and knowing, without being able to explain it, that this person was going to matter. They dated for a year. They got married in a small ceremony, a rented hall, a few close friends, a cake that was slightly lopsided but tasted wonderful. Veronica had laughed all day. Not the polite laugh that people do at events but real laughter, the kind that takes over your whole face. Gabriel had thought, watching her, "I am the luckiest man in this entire city." He kept a photo from that day folded carefully in his wallet. Her face turned toward his, her eyes bright, her hand in his. He looked at that photo on the hard days, and there were many hard days, and it had always been enough to steady him. But things had begun to change when Veronica got a job at a company called Titan Corporate Center. At first he had been happy for her. It was a good company, one of those clean, glass-building companies in the business district where everyone wore formal clothes and carried laptops and slim bags. The pay was better than her old job. She came home the first week excited, full of stories about her new office and her new colleagues and the coffee machine in the break room that made 4 different kinds of coffee. Gabriel had listened to every word. He had been proud of her. But slowly, so slowly that it was hard to say exactly when it started, things began to shift. Veronica stopped coming home excited. Then she stopped coming home on time. Then she stopped talking much at all. She would walk through the front door at night, drop her bag, eat in silence if she ate anything, and go to bed with her back to his side of the bed. Gabriel told himself she was tired. The new job was demanding. She was adjusting. People went through phases. He kept telling himself this for weeks. But a quiet worry had settled in his chest like a stone, and no matter how many times he told himself everything was fine, the stone did not move. The morning it all changed started like any other. Gabriel was up before 6. He made his tea, checked the app, strapped on his bag, and walked his motorcycle out of the narrow yard beside the apartment building. The engine coughed twice, then caught. He pulled on his helmet, checked his mirror, the one held by electrical tape, and joined the stream of traffic already filling the road. He had 3 orders waiting. The first one was a bag of groceries going to an apartment on the other side of town. Gabriel picked it up from a small supermarket, strapped it carefully into his delivery bag, and navigated through the heavy morning traffic. He liked riding in the early morning. The city felt a little softer then, not so sharp and loud. The light was gentle and pale, and sometimes, if the wind was blowing the right way, you could smell something clean underneath all the fuel smoke and noise. Something that reminded you that the city was built on real earth, and real earth still had something good in it. But the morning did not stay soft for long. By the time Gabriel reached the delivery address, his phone was already ringing. He looked at the screen. It was the customer. He picked up. "Hello, is this the delivery man?" A sharp voice, not bothering with pleasantries. "Yes, sir. I'm almost at your building. I'll be there in about 2 minutes. Cancel it." Gabriel blinked. "Sorry?" "I said cancel the order. I don't need it anymore." Gabriel pulled his motorcycle to the side of the road and stopped. He took a slow breath. "Sir, I've already picked up the groceries. I'm right outside your—" "I don't care. Cancel it. I changed my mind." The call ended. Gabriel sat there for a moment, his hand still holding the phone. He looked at the delivery bag. Inside it was $18 worth of groceries, milk, bread, 2 cans of tomatoes, and a bunch of bananas. He had already spent fuel money to get here. If the customer canceled now, the company would give him a small cancellation fee, but it would not cover everything he had already lost. He pressed his lips together and stared at the road ahead. This was not the first time this had happened. It would not be the last. Customers canceled for all kinds of reasons, or no reason at all. They ordered food and then fell asleep. They ordered groceries and then drove to the market themselves. They changed their minds or forgot or simply did not care that somewhere out there, a real person had already spent their time and fuel to help them. Gabriel opened the app and marked the order as canceled. He looked at the groceries again. He considered taking them back to the supermarket, but that was another 40 minutes in this traffic with nothing to gain. He thought about just leaving them, but that felt wrong. Wasteful. And Gabriel did not like waste. He reached into the bag, took out a banana, and ate it slowly, sitting on his motorcycle by the side of the road, watching the city rush past him like it always did, fast and loud and completely unbothered. "One day," he said quietly to no one in particular. It was something he said often. Not as a complaint. More like a promise he kept making to himself. One day. He had 2 more orders after that. The second one went smoothly, a lunch delivery for a woman in an office building downtown. She tipped him $2 and smiled when she took the bag. Gabriel smiled back. Those $2 felt good. Not just because of the money, though he needed every cent. It was the smile. It meant he had done his job well and someone had noticed. He was checking his phone for the 3rd order when something made him look up. A woman was standing by the side of the road with her hand raised. She was not waving wildly like someone desperate for a taxi. She was standing very still, her hand raised just above her shoulder, looking directly at him with calm, steady eyes. She wore a dark blue blazer and matching trousers, neat and pressed. Her hair was pulled back cleanly. She had a small leather bag tucked under one arm and a phone in her other hand. She looked important. The kind of important that was real, not performed. Gabriel almost rode past her. He was not a taxi. Carrying passengers was technically against company rules. But something made him slow down. Maybe it was the way she was standing, not desperate, not panicking, just waiting. Calm and certain that someone would stop. He stopped. "Good morning," she said. Her voice was even and steady. "I know you're a delivery rider. I can see your bag. But my car broke down and I need to get to my office urgently. It's about 10 minutes from here. I'll pay you well." Gabriel looked at her. Then at the road. Then back at her. "Which office?" he asked. "Titan Corporate Center," she said. "On Broad Street." Gabriel knew the building. One of the biggest in that part of the city, all glass and steel with security guards at the entrance and expensive cars filling the parking lot. I have another delivery in that direction, he said, which was true. His third order was only a few streets from Broad Street. Get on. She paused for just a second, not from fear but from the kind of careful thinking that sensible people do before making a decision. Then she climbed onto the back of the motorcycle and held the side handles lightly, not gripping his jacket, not holding him at all, just keeping herself balanced. Gabriel noticed that. Most passengers either clutched at you in a panic or held on so loosely they slid around at every turn. This woman sat like someone who had decided to trust the situation completely and was simply moving forward. He pulled into traffic. They did not talk for the first few minutes. The road was too loud and the traffic too thick. Gabriel weaved carefully through the gaps, taking his time, not rushing recklessly the way some riders did. He had learned long ago that speed was not the same as skill. Real skill meant getting there safely, every single time. At a red light, the woman spoke. "You're careful," she said. Not a question, an observation. "I try to be," Gabriel said. "Most riders in this city drive like they're angry at the road." Gabriel almost smiled. "Some of them are. Are you?" He thought about it honestly. "Not today." The light turned green. He moved forward. A few minutes later they hit a jam near a junction. A bus stopped sideways in the road and everyone trying to squeeze around it at the same time. Gabriel slowed to a crawl. "Can I ask you something?" the woman said from behind him. "Sure. Why did you stop for me?" Most delivery riders wouldn't. Gabriel was quiet for a moment. "You needed help. I was going in the same direction. It made sense. But it's against your company rules." He glanced back quickly. "You know about delivery company rules?" "I know a lot about how businesses work," she said simply and without pride. Gabriel turned back to the road. "Well, sometimes what makes sense is more important than what the rulebook says. As long as nobody gets hurt." There was a short pause. "That's an interesting way to think about it," the woman said. They reached Broad Street a few minutes later. Gabriel rode up to the front of Titan Corporate Center and stopped. The building was even more impressive up close. The glass walls caught the morning sun and threw it back across the street in long, bright lines. The woman climbed off and reached into her bag. "How much?" she asked. "Whatever you feel is fair," Gabriel said. She looked at him. Something shifted very slightly in her expression, like a small door opening somewhere behind her eyes. She counted out $15 and held it out to him. "Thank you," she said. "Safe morning," Gabriel replied. She walked toward the building entrance, showed her ID to the security guard at the door, and disappeared through the glass. Gabriel looked down at the money in his hand. $15. That was good. More than good for 10 minutes of riding. He tucked it into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone to check on the third order. The address was listed as Orion Street, right around the corner. He scrolled to the delivery notes. He read it once. Then he read it again. Titan Corporate Center. Floor 4. Reception. Gabriel blinked at the screen. He was already here. He locked his motorcycle at the side of the building, pulled the delivery package from his bag, and walked through the front entrance. The inside of Titan Corporate Center was exactly what the outside promised. Cool air that felt almost cold after the heat of the road. Floors so clean they caught the light. Soft, invisible music playing from somewhere in the ceiling. A large reception desk with 2 smartly dressed women behind it. Potted plants in the corners. A wide marble staircase and glass elevators running up the side of the building. Gabriel felt the looks the moment he stepped in. He was used to it. Delivery riders were not exactly unwelcome in places like this. Everyone needed deliveries after all, but there was a certain way these buildings preferred it to happen. Quietly. Quickly. Through the side entrance if possible. Come in, drop the package, leave. Like a shadow passing through a room that preferred not to notice you. Gabriel walked to the reception desk. "Quick run delivery," he said. "I have an order for floor 4. One of the women checked her screen without looking up. "Sign here." She slid a tablet toward him. He signed, tucked the package under his arm, and was directed to the service elevator at the far end of the lobby. The elevator carried him up to the 4th floor. When the doors opened, he stepped into a wide hallway with frosted glass walls. Shapes moved behind the glass. People at desks, people carrying folders, people talking quietly into phones. The whole floor hummed with that particular energy of a place where serious work was happening, where everyone had somewhere to be and something to do. A young man appeared at the elevator and took the package from him with a quick nod. "Thanks," the young man said, already turning away. Gabriel turned back toward the elevator. And that was when he heard it. A laugh. It floated down the hallway from somewhere near the far end, soft and warm and immediately familiar. A laugh he had heard 1,000 times. In the kitchen on Sunday mornings. During films they watched together on the couch. On the good evenings, the easy evenings, before everything between them had turned quiet and cold. He turned slowly. At the far end of the hallway, through an open door leading into what looked like a private meeting room, he could see two figures standing close together. A woman in a red office dress. A man in a dark suit, taller than her, broad-shouldered, leaning down toward her with easy confidence. Gabriel's feet stopped moving. The woman turned slightly, and the light from the window behind her caught the side of her face. It was Veronica, his wife. She was laughing at something the man had just said, head tilted back, shoulders relaxed, entirely comfortable. And as Gabriel stood there watching, unable to look away, unable to move, the man in the dark suit leaned down and kissed her. Not a quick, uncertain kiss. A slow, comfortable one. The kiss of two people who had done this before. And Veronica kissed him back. The world did not shake. No alarm went off. The lights in the hallway stayed exactly as they were. Everything around Gabriel remained perfectly, terribly normal. But inside him something broke. It was not loud. It did not arrive with rage or tears or the urge to shout. It was quiet, the way a heavy door swings shut in an empty house. A soft, final sound that no one else can hear. Click. He stood there for 3 full seconds. In those 3 seconds his whole life moved through him at once. He saw Veronica in her yellow dress at the bus stop, laughing about the late bus. He saw her on their wedding day, her hand in his, her eyes bright. He saw their small apartment, the wobbling fan, the wardrobe that wouldn't close, and the two of them eating together at the little kitchen table, talking about the future, making plans that felt real. He saw the morning she had stopped talking. The evenings she came home late and went straight to bed with her back to him. The way she had begun looking at him differently, not with love, not even with anger, but with something much harder to bear. A kind of patient waiting. Like a person sitting in a waiting room, watching the clock, ready to leave the moment their name was called. He understood now what she had been waiting for. Gabriel lowered his eyes from the doorway. He turned around. He walked back down the hallway to the service elevator. Pressed the button. Stepped inside when the doors opened. Rode it back down to the ground floor in silence. He walked across the cool, clean lobby. Past the reception desk. Past the potted plants and the soft music. He walked out through the glass doors into the heat and noise of the city. He put on his helmet. He got on his motorcycle. And he rode away. Gabriel rode for a long time without any destination in mind. That was not something he ever did. Gabriel was a practical man. Every ride had a purpose. A pickup, a drop-off, an address on a screen. He did not waste fuel. He did not wander. But today, his hands just held the handlebars and his feet just worked the pedals. And the city moved around him like a river he was floating through without choosing a direction. He passed through streets he knew well. Streets he had delivered on 100 times. The bakery on Clement Road where the smell of fresh bread hit you half a block away. The primary school on Whitfield Street where children in blue uniforms spilled out through the gates at closing time. The old man who sat outside the hardware shop every afternoon on a plastic chair, watching the road as if he were waiting for something that was always just about to arrive. Gabriel saw all of it. And he felt none of it. There was a strange emptiness inside him. Not the hollow kind of emptiness that comes from hunger or loneliness. It was more like the emptiness of a room after the furniture has been moved out. The walls were still there, the floor was still solid, but the thing that had made it a home was gone, and the space where it used to be was now just space. He did not cry. He had expected to feel something louder than this. Anger maybe. Or the kind of sharp, electric pain you feel when you cut yourself badly, that first clean moment before the blood comes. But what he felt instead was this quiet, wide-open nothing. Like the ground had disappeared from under him so slowly that he had not noticed until he looked down. He pulled off the main road eventually and stopped by the edge of a small park, a patch of tired grass and 2 benches that the city had forgotten about. He sat on his motorcycle and looked at the park without really seeing it. He thought about the man in the dark suit. He had not seen the man's face clearly, but he had seen enough. The broad shoulders. The easy way he had leaned down toward Veronica. Not nervous, not rushed. Comfortable. The way you move around someone you know well. The way you move around someone who belongs to you. Gabriel reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his wallet. He opened it slowly and looked at the photo. Veronica on their wedding day. Her face turned toward his. Her eyes bright. Her hand in his. He looked at it for a long time. Then he folded the wallet closed, put it back in his pocket, and sat quietly for another few minutes while the city made its noise all around him. After a while, he put on his helmet, started the engine, and rode home. The apartment felt smaller than usual when he walked in. He didn't know why. It was the same size it had always been. Same damp patch on the wall. Same wobbling fan. Same wardrobe that refused to stay closed. Nothing had moved or changed. But the rooms felt tighter somehow, like the walls had shifted just slightly inward while he was away. He put his delivery bag on the floor. He took off his jacket and hung it on the hook behind the door. He went to the kitchen and drank a full glass of water, standing at the sink, looking out through the small window at the narrow alley below. Then he sat down at the kitchen table and waited. He was not sure what he was waiting for. He had not planned anything. He had not decided what he was going to say or how he was going to say it. He just knew that he could not carry this thing alone in his chest any longer. It was too heavy. It needed to be put down somewhere. The key turned in the front door lock at 7:30 that evening. Veronica walked in looking the way she always looked after work. Composed, put together, the kind of tired that comes from sitting in air conditioning all day rather than the kind that comes from being out in the world. She was still wearing the red office dress. She had her leather bag on her shoulder and her phone in her hand. She saw Gabriel sitting at the kitchen table and stopped for just a moment. "You're home early," she said. She said it the way you say something when you need to say something, and that is the first thing that comes. "I finished my rounds," Gabriel said. Veronica nodded. She put her bag down on the chair near the door. She went to the kitchen, moving around him the way she had learned to move around him these past months, like he was a piece of furniture she had learned to avoid, and opened the fridge. "There's nothing to cook," she said, looking inside. "I know," Gabriel said. "I didn't go to the market." She closed the fridge. She turned around and leaned against the counter, arms folded, and looked at him with a kind of careful patience, the look of someone who has learned to manage a situation. "Are you okay?" she asked. Not warmly. More like a check. Gabriel looked at her. This woman he had known for 4 years. This woman he had married in a hall with a lopsided cake and real laughter. This woman whose photo he still carried in his wallet. "I was at Titan Corporate Center today," he said. Something moved across Veronica's face. It was fast, barely a flicker, but Gabriel had been watching her face for 4 years and he saw it. "For a delivery," he continued. "4th floor." Veronica said nothing. "I saw you," Gabriel said. His voice was quiet and even. He was not shouting. He did not want to shout. "In the meeting room at the end of the hallway. I saw you and your boss." The kitchen was very silent. Outside, somewhere down the alley, a dog was barking at something. A car passed on the street. The ceiling fan wobbled overhead, stirring the warm air. Veronica unfolded her arms. And what happened next was the thing that Gabriel had not prepared for. She did not cry. She did not beg. She did not try to explain it away or invent a story or fall to her knees with an apology spilling out of her. She let out a slow breath, like someone who had been holding it for a long time and was finally, quietly, relieved to let it go. "Okay," she said. "Just that. Okay." Gabriel stared at her. "That's all you have to say?" Veronica looked at him, and in her eyes there was something he had never seen there before. Not love. Not guilt. Not even cruelty exactly. It was something colder and more honest than all of those things. It was the look of a person who had made a decision a long time ago and was now simply done pretending otherwise. "Gabriel," she said, and her voice was flat and clear, like a statement being read from a page. "I am tired." "Tired?" he repeated. "Tired of this apartment. Tired of that motorcycle outside. Tired of counting dollars and making plans that never go anywhere." She looked around the kitchen. The damp wall, the old fridge, the single bulb above the table, and the look on her face was not one of sadness. It was one of finality. "I have been tired for a long time." Gabriel was quiet. "David can give me the life I want," she said, simply, without apology. "The life I should have had." "The life you should have had," Gabriel said slowly as if testing the words. "Yes." He looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded very slightly. Not in agreement. In understanding. "So all this time," he said, "everything I was working toward, everything I was doing, the early mornings, the deliveries, coming home with sore hands and a sore back, you were already gone." Veronica did not answer that. But she did not deny it either. "Keep your mediocre love, Gabriel," she said. "And your poverty. I'm done." She picked up her bag from the chair, walked into the bedroom and closed the door. Gabriel sat at the kitchen table for a long time. The dog down the alley had stopped barking. The car sounds had faded. The ceiling fan wobbled quietly overhead. He reached into his pocket and took out his wallet one more time. He looked at the photo. Then, slowly, carefully, he took it out from behind the plastic cover where it had lived for 3 years. He set it flat on the table in front of him. He looked at it for a long time, at her bright eyes, at his own younger face, at their hands joined together. Then he stood up, went to the kitchen counter, and placed the photo face down in the small drawer where they kept old receipts and forgotten pens. He closed the drawer. He drank another glass of water. And then he went to the couch, lay down with his jacket over him like a blanket, and stared at the ceiling until sleep finally, quietly came for him. Gabriel woke up before the alarm. That was nothing new. His body had learned, after years of early deliveries, to pull itself out of sleep before it was asked. But this morning was different. He did not wake up reaching for his phone to check the app. He did not swing his legs off the couch with the automatic energy of a man who had somewhere to be. He just lay there. The ceiling fan was still wobbling slowly overhead. The early morning light was coming through the curtains in thin pale strips, laying themselves across the floor like quiet visitors. Somewhere outside, the city was already clearing its throat. A distant engine, a horn, the sound of a metal gate being rolled open by a shopkeeper getting ready for the day. Gabriel stared at the ceiling and let the previous day move through him slowly, like a film he was watching for the second time, already knowing how it ended. He had hoped, in some small and foolish part of himself, that sleeping would make it feel less real. That was what sleep was supposed to do with hard things. Soften them a little, sand down the sharp edges, make them easier to hold in the morning. But this morning, everything was exactly as sharp as it had been the night before. The fourth-floor hallway. The open door. The red dress. The man in the dark suit leaning down. Click. He sat up. He ran both hands over his face and held them there for a moment, pressing lightly against his eyes. Then he dropped them and looked at the bedroom door. It was still closed. He had not heard Veronica leave for work yet. The apartment had the particular silence of a place where more than one person is awake but neither of them is ready to speak. Gabriel stood up. He folded his jacket neatly and set it on the arm of the couch. He went to the bathroom, washed his face with cold water, and looked at himself in the mirror for a moment. He looked the same as always. He did not know why that surprised him. The face looking back at him was the same face it had always been. The scar above the left eyebrow, the honest eyes, the jaw that needed a shave. Nothing on the outside had changed. But something behind the eyes was different. He could not name it exactly. It was not hardness, he did not want to become hard. It was not anger, the anger had come and gone in the night like a brief, quiet storm. It was something closer to clarity. Like a window that had been foggy for a long time had finally been wiped clean, and now he could see through it properly for the first time. He dried his face and went to the kitchen. He was making tea when he heard the bedroom door open. Veronica came out already dressed for work. She had on a gray blazer and dark trousers, her hair neat, her bag already on her shoulder. She looked like she always looked in the morning, put together, purposeful, ready for the day. She looked at him standing at the kettle. He looked at her. Neither of them said good morning. She went to the fridge, took out a small bottle of water, put it in her bag. She picked up her keys from the bowl by the door. She did all of this with the calm efficiency of someone going through a routine that no longer included the other person in the room. She was almost at the door when Gabriel spoke. Veronica. She stopped. She did not turn around fully. Just enough to show she was listening. I want you to know something, he said. His voice was quiet and steady. No anger in it. No begging. Just words placed carefully one after the other. I'm not going to chase you. I'm not going to beg you to stay. And I am not going to pretend that what I saw yesterday did not happen. Veronica said nothing. Her hand was on the door handle. But I also want you to know, Gabriel continued, that I did nothing wrong. I worked. I was honest. I came home every night. Whatever is broken here, I did not break it. A short silence. Are you finished? Veronica said. Yes, Gabriel said. Have a good day. She opened the door and left. Gabriel listened to her footsteps going down the staircase outside. He listened to the building door open and close. He stood at the kitchen counter with his tea going cold in his hand, and he breathed slowly and steadily, the way a man breathes when he is holding himself together by choice. Then he put down the tea, picked up his phone, and opened the Quick Run app. He had 4 orders waiting. Okay, he said quietly. To himself. To the empty kitchen. To no one and everyone. He strapped on his delivery bag, picked up his helmet, and went to work. The city received him the way it always did, without ceremony, without sympathy, without any particular interest in what he was carrying inside him. The traffic was thick. The sun was already strong. A bus cut in front of him near the junction on Marlowe Street and he braked calmly, let it pass and kept moving. He completed the first order by 8:15. A breakfast delivery to a man in a fourth-floor apartment who didn't look up from his laptop when he opened the door. The second order was a package of documents going to a law office downtown. The woman at the reception desk there smiled at him and offered him a plastic cup of water. He thanked her and drank it standing in the lobby, grateful for the coolness of it. The third order brought him back to the same part of the city he had been in yesterday. He noticed it when he checked the address. His stomach tightened slightly, not with fear, but with the particular discomfort of a place that now carried a memory he had not asked for. He rode there anyway. The job was the job. He was parked outside a small pharmacy 2 streets from Broad Street, waiting for a prescription package to be prepared, when he heard a voice behind him. The careful rider. He turned around. It was the woman from yesterday. The one in the dark blue blazer who had needed a lift to Titan Corporate Center. She was standing on the pavement outside the pharmacy, a paper bag in her hand, looking at him with that same calm and steady expression. Gabriel blinked. "Good morning." "Good morning," she said. She looked at him for a moment, the way someone looks when they are seeing more than just a face. "You look different today." Gabriel said nothing to that. "Are you all right?" she asked. It was a simple question. 4 words. The kind of thing people said to each other all the time without meaning it very much. But something about the way this woman said it, without pity, without performance, just with plain and direct attention, made it feel like a real question that deserved a real answer. "I've had better days," Gabriel said honestly. She nodded slowly. She did not push further, did not offer the kind of cheerful reassurance that people give when they do not know what else to do. She just accepted his answer the way a sensible person accepts the weather. "I never asked your name yesterday," she said. "Gabriel," he said. "Sarah," she said. She held out her hand. He shook it. "Gabriel," she said again, as if placing the name somewhere in her mind where she would not lose it. The man who stops when he doesn't have to. He almost smiled at that. Almost. The pharmacist's assistant appeared at the pharmacy door with his package. Gabriel signed for it, checked the address and tucked it into his delivery bag. "I have to go," he said. "Of course," Sarah said. She paused for just a moment. "Take care of yourself today. Not just the deliveries." Gabriel looked at her. There was something in her eyes, not pity, not curiosity, but something closer to recognition. Like she was looking at something she understood, even if she did not know the full story yet. "I'll try," he said. He put on his helmet and rode away. He did not look back. But for the rest of that morning, as he moved through the city from one address to the next, something about that small exchange sat with him quietly. Not loudly. Not in a way that demanded anything from him. Just warmly. The way a small, unexpected kindness sometimes does. Arriving without warning, staying longer than it has any reason to. The rest of that day passed the way difficult days often do, slowly at first, then all at once. Gabriel completed his remaining orders without incident. A parcel of children's clothes to a young mother on the 3rd floor of a building with a broken elevator, who apologized 5 times for the stairs. A food delivery to an office where the receptionist complained that the order was 4 minutes late, and Gabriel apologized calmly even though the delay had been caused by a road closure that no one had told him about. A small box of medication to an elderly man named Mr. Aldridge who lived alone in a quiet street near the edge of the business district, and who asked Gabriel if he wanted to come in for a biscuit. Gabriel said no thank you, he had more deliveries. But he stood at the door for an extra 2 minutes and let Mr. Aldridge tell him about the weather and his cat and how the street used to look 30 years ago, because he could see that Mr. Aldridge was lonely, and 2 minutes cost him nothing. That was the kind of man Gabriel was. He did not do it so anyone would notice. He did not do it so anyone would reward him. He did it because it was the right thing, and doing the right thing had always been, for Gabriel, less of a decision and more of a reflex. Like breathing. Like stopping for someone who needed a ride when you were already going in that direction. By late afternoon he had made enough for the day to cover fuel, food, and the small portion he set aside every week toward the rent. Not comfortable. Not easy. But enough. Gabriel had learned to find a kind of quiet dignity in enough. He parked his motorcycle outside the apartment building as the sun was beginning to soften into evening. He sat on it for a moment before going inside, looking at the street the way Mr. Aldridge looked at his, not with longing exactly, but with the steady attention of someone who had learned that ordinary things deserve to be noticed. Then he went upstairs. The apartment was empty. Veronica's gray blazer, which she usually draped over the chair by the door when she came home, was not there. Her second pair of work shoes, which lived under that same chair, were gone too. Gabriel stood in the doorway and looked at the room. He noticed other things then. Small things. The kind of things you only notice when you are looking carefully, or when something has shifted and the familiar arrangement of a space suddenly shows you its gaps. The small bottle of perfume that usually sat on the little shelf above the bathroom sink, gone. The extra phone charger she kept plugged in beside the bed, gone. 2 of the good dinner plates from the kitchen cupboard, gone. She had not taken everything. Most of her clothes were still in the wardrobe, the one that wouldn't close properly. Her work files were still stacked in the corner of the bedroom. Her name was still on the electricity bill pinned to the board above the kitchen counter. But she had taken enough to tell him something. She was not just angry. She was not just putting distance between them while she figured things out. She was moving. Slowly, quietly, in pieces, the way someone moves when they have somewhere else to go and they are simply waiting for the right moment to go there fully. Gabriel stood in the kitchen for a while, looking at the cupboard where 2 of the good plates used to be. Then he opened the cupboard, took out one of the remaining plates, and made himself a simple dinner: rice, a fried egg, a tomato cut in half. He ate at the kitchen table, alone, under the single bulb, and he chewed each mouthful slowly and deliberately, the way a man eats when he is determined to keep himself grounded. He washed his plate when he was done. Dried it. Put it back. He sat in the chair by the window for a while, watching the street below. Then he went to bed. He did not sleep well. But he slept. 3 days passed like this. Gabriel worked. He came home. The apartment grew quieter in the particular way that spaces grow quiet when something has been decided about them, even if that decision has not yet been spoken out loud. Veronica came back each evening, but later and later. Sometimes past 9. Sometimes closer to 10. She would come in, move through the apartment like a stranger passing through a train station, and go to bed. Gabriel did not confront her again. He had said what he needed to say. He was not going to repeat himself. But on the 4th morning something changed. He was checking his delivery orders at the kitchen table when his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. He opened it. Gabriel. This is Sarah. We met outside the pharmacy. I got your number from the quick run dispatch. I hope that is all right. I have a delivery request, but I would prefer you handle it personally. Are you available at 11 this morning? Gabriel read it twice. He was not sure how he felt about her contacting him directly. It was a little unusual. But there was nothing threatening about it. It was straightforward, polite, and she had explained how she got the number. He thought about it for a moment, then typed back. I can be available at 11. What's the address? The reply came quickly. Titan Corporate Center. Come to the main reception and ask for me directly. Gabriel stared at the screen. Titan Corporate Center. He thought about the 4th floor hallway. The frosted glass. The open door at the end. He put his phone down on the table and looked at it for a moment, the way you look at something you are not sure about. Then he picked it up again and typed, I'll be there. He arrived at 5 minutes to 11. The building looked the same as it always did, glass and steel catching the morning light, security guard at the front, expensive cars in the lot. Gabriel locked his motorcycle, took off his helmet, and ran a hand through his hair. He looked down at his jacket, the worn delivery jacket with the Quick Run logo on the back, and for a brief moment considered whether he should have worn something else. Then he let the thought go. He was who he was. He had nothing to be ashamed of. He walked through the front entrance. At the reception desk, he gave his name and asked for Sarah. The woman at the desk, a different one from the last time, picked up her phone, spoke briefly into it, and then looked up at him. She'll be right down, she said. Gabriel nodded and stood to the side of the lobby, hands in his jacket pockets. He watched the glass elevators moving up and down the side of the building. He watched people crossing the lobby in both directions. Men and women in formal clothes, carrying laptops and folders, moving with the particular confidence of people who worked in buildings like this. People who belonged here. He thought again briefly about whether he belonged here. Again he let the thought go. The elevator on the left opened and Sarah walked out. She was dressed differently from the 2 times he had seen her before. Not the dark blue blazer, but a sharp charcoal suit with a white shirt underneath. She wore small gold earrings and carried nothing in her hands, which Gabriel noticed because most people in buildings like this always seem to be carrying something. She walked directly toward him, no hesitation, and extended her hand. Thank you for coming, she said. You said you had a delivery request, Gabriel said, shaking her hand. I do, she said. But first, can we sit for a moment? She gestured toward a small seating area near the far wall of the lobby, 2 armchairs and a low table, the kind of corner that big office buildings kept for visitors. Gabriel followed her there and sat down. Sarah sat across from him, straight-backed, hands resting on her knees. She looked at him with that same clear, direct attention he had noticed both times before. "I want to ask you something," she said. "And I want you to answer me honestly, even if the answer is uncomfortable." Gabriel looked at her steadily. "All right. The last 2 times I've seen you," she said, "you have looked like a man carrying something heavy. Not the delivery bag." She paused. "Something else. Something personal." Gabriel said nothing. "I notice people," Sarah said simply. "It's something I've always done. And I noticed you the first time you stopped for me on the road, not just because you were kind but because of the way you were kind. Like it cost you nothing. Like it was simply what you did." She paused again. "People who are that naturally honest are rare. And when I saw you outside the pharmacy and you looked the way you looked, I thought there was something happening in your life that was not fair to you." Gabriel looked at the floor for a moment, then back at her. "Why does it matter to you?" he asked. Not rudely. With genuine curiosity. Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Because I run this company," she said. "And the people who work inside this building, or who come through it, are my responsibility in ways that go beyond what the job descriptions say." She held his gaze. "And because I think something happened to you in this building. Didn't it?" It was not quite a question. Gabriel felt the air in the room shift slightly. He looked at this woman, calm, careful, powerful in a way that was not loud, and he understood that she already knew more than she was saying. Or suspected it. Or had seen something herself that had led her here, to this chair, asking him these questions in this quiet, direct way. He made a decision. "Yes," he said. "Something happened in this building." Sarah nodded once. Slowly. "Tell me," she said. And Gabriel told her. He did not tell it dramatically. There was no raised voice, no trembling hands, no moment where he broke down and had to stop and collect himself. Gabriel told it the way he did most things. Quietly, carefully, one word after another, in the right order. He told her about the delivery to the 4th floor. About the package, the young man who took it, the walk back toward the elevator. He told her about the laugh he had recognized from the far end of the hallway. He told her about turning slowly and the open door and the 2 figures inside the room. He told her about Veronica. That she was his wife. That she worked in this building. He told her about the man in the dark suit. He did not use the word betrayal. He did not use the word devastated. He used plain, simple words that said exactly what had happened and nothing more. Because Gabriel had learned, somewhere along the way, that the truth did not need decoration. It was heavy enough on its own. When he finished, the lobby was quiet around them. Someone crossed the far end of the space with a folder under their arm. The elevator hummed. A phone rang briefly at the reception desk and was answered and went quiet again. Sarah had not moved during the entire time he was speaking. She sat with her hands still resting on her knees, her eyes on his face, and she listened the way very few people know how to listen, completely without preparing her response while he was still talking, without letting her expression tell him what to feel about what he was saying. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. "The man in the dark suit," she said. "Did you see his face?" "Not clearly," Gabriel said. "But I saw enough. Tall. Broad shoulders. Dark suit. He moved like someone who was comfortable in that room. Like it was his space." Something shifted very slightly in Sarah's expression. A small tightening around the eyes. There and gone in less than a second. "And your wife," she said carefully. "She works on which floor?" "I don't know exactly," Gabriel said. "She never talked much about the layout of the building. But she works here. Has done for about 8 months now." Sarah nodded slowly. She looked down at the low table between them for a moment, and Gabriel had the sense that she was arranging something in her mind, placing pieces carefully, the way you arrange furniture in a room to make sense of the space. Then she looked back up at him. "Gabriel," she said. "I want to be straight with you because you have been straight with me." She paused. "What you have described, if it is what I think it is not just a personal matter. It involves someone in this building who has responsibilities. Serious ones. And if that person has been conducting themselves the way you are describing during working hours in company spaces," she stopped. "That is something I need to know about." Gabriel looked at her. "I didn't come here to get anyone in trouble," he said. "I know that," Sarah said. "That's exactly why I'm listening to you." He held her gaze for a moment. Then he nodded. Sarah straightened in her chair. "I'm going to ask you to do something," she said. "And I want you to take your time before you answer." She folded her hands together. I would like you to come back tomorrow morning. Early 8 o'clock. I will have spoken to a few people by then. Quietly. Carefully. And I may need you to confirm what you saw formally to the right people. Gabriel was quiet. You don't have to, Sarah said. What you choose to do with what you saw is entirely your decision. But I want you to know that if you are willing to tell the truth, the same way you just told it to me, then that truth will be heard. And it will matter. Gabriel looked at the floor. He thought about Veronica's face in the kitchen that evening. The flatness of it. The absence of anything that looked like guilt or sorrow or even the basic human recognition that she had hurt someone who had done nothing to deserve it. Keep your mediocre love. And your poverty. I'm done. He thought about the photo face down in the drawer with the old receipts. He thought about Mr. Aldridge standing in his doorway, telling him about the street 30 years ago, lonely in a way that nobody in a big city had time to notice. He thought about the banana he had eaten on the side of the road after the canceled order, alone, while the city rushed past without looking at him. He thought about the kind of man he wanted to be. Not the kind of man who collapsed when things got hard. Not the kind who became bitter or small or cruel in return for cruelty. But the kind who told the truth because it was the right thing, even when it cost him something. Even when it was uncomfortable. Even when no one was watching. He looked up at Sarah. 8 o'clock, he said. I'll be here. Sarah nodded. And for the first time since he had met her, something that was almost a smile moved across her face. Small and brief and genuine. Good, she said. Go home, Gabriel. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be a long day. He rode home slowly that evening. The city was doing its usual end-of-day performance around him. Traffic thickening, street sellers packing up, office workers spilling out of buildings and filling the pavements, everyone moving in that particular tired but relieved way that people move when the workday is finally behind them. Gabriel moved through all of it at his usual careful pace. He was thinking about what he had done. Not with regret, he did not feel regret. But with the sober awareness of a man who understands that once a thing is set in motion, it tends to keep moving. He had told the truth. He had agreed to tell it again tomorrow. And whatever happened after that was no longer entirely in his hands. He was at peace with that. What he was less at peace with was what waited for him at home. Because going home now meant going back to the apartment where Veronica was slowly, quietly, piece by piece, removing herself from his life. Where 2 of the good dinner plates were gone. Where the perfume bottle no longer sat on the bathroom shelf. Where the bedroom door closed every night like a small, polite wall between 2 people who had once promised to face everything together. He parked outside the building and sat on his motorcycle for a moment, helmet in his hands, looking up at the window of their apartment. The light was on inside. She was home. Gabriel took a slow breath. Then he got up, went inside and climbed the stairs. The atmosphere in the apartment that evening was different from the nights before. He felt it the moment he opened the door. Something tighter in the air. More deliberate. Veronica was sitting on the couch. Not lying down, not on her phone, not doing anything in particular. Just sitting. Upright. Waiting. Gabriel closed the door behind him and hung up his jacket. We need to talk, Veronica said. All right, Gabriel said. He pulled the chair from the kitchen table, set it a few feet from the couch and sat down. He did not make tea. He did not fidget. He just sat and looked at her and waited. Veronica had her hands folded in her lap. She looked, Gabriel thought, like someone who had rehearsed what they were about to say and was now simply delivering it. I've made arrangements, she said. I'll be moving out by the end of the week. Gabriel said nothing. I'll take the rest of my things then. I've already spoken to someone about the lease. Your name is the primary one on the contract, so the apartment stays with you. I'll stop contributing to the rent from the 1st of next month. Gabriel nodded slowly. Is that all? He said. Veronica looked at him carefully. She had expected something different from him, he could tell. Anger maybe. Or pleading. Or the kind of desperate bargaining that people do when they are not ready to let go. She had prepared herself for a fight and he was not giving her one, and that seemed to unsettle her more than a fight would have. Yes, she said. That's all. Okay, Gabriel said. He stood up. He put the chair back at the kitchen table. He went to the kitchen and started making rice, moving quietly, filling the small pot with water and setting it on the burner. Veronica sat on the couch for a while longer, watching him. You're not going to say anything? She said. Gabriel looked at her over his shoulder. You've made your decision, he said. I've made mine. I don't think there's much left to say. What decision have you made? She asked. And there was something in her voice, very small, almost hidden, that sounded for just a moment like genuine curiosity. Gabriel turned back to the pot. To keep going, he said simply. Same as always. Veronica was quiet after that. She went to bed early. Gabriel ate his rice alone at the kitchen table, washed his plate, dried it, and put it back in the cupboard. He set his alarm for 6:30. He had to be at Titan Corporate Center by 8. Gabriel was up at 6. He did not wait for the alarm. He lay there for a few minutes in the gray pre-dawn light, listening to the building around him come slowly to life. A door closing somewhere above, water moving through the pipes in the walls, the first distant sounds of traffic beginning to gather on the street below. The ordinary sounds of an ordinary morning in a city that never fully slept and never fully woke, but existed always in some state between the two. He got up, washed his face, made his tea. He moved quietly through the apartment, careful not to make noise, though part of him understood that he was being careful out of habit more than consideration. The consideration he had carried for 4 years, the instinct to move gently around Veronica's mornings, to keep the kettle from whistling too long, to close the cupboard doors softly, that consideration had been for a marriage that no longer existed. He was being quiet for a ghost. He drank his tea standing at the kitchen window, watching the alley below fill slowly with morning light. He thought about what today might bring. He was not a man who liked to imagine things too far ahead. Life had taught him that imagination and reality rarely matched, and the gap between them was where most disappointment lived. But he could not help turning it over quietly in his mind. The conversation with Sarah. The things she had said. If that person has been conducting themselves the way you are describing during working hours in company spaces, that is something I need to know about. He had told the truth yesterday. He was going to tell it again today. And whatever happened after that, he let the thought rest there. Unfinished. Open. He rinsed his cup, put on his delivery jacket and picked up his helmet. At the bedroom door he paused for just a second. Not because he wanted to say anything. Not because there was anything left to say. Just a pause. The way you pause at the end of a chapter before turning the page, not out of hesitation but out of a kind of quiet respect for everything the chapter contained. Then he turned and walked out. The streets at that hour had a different quality to them. The serious rush had not yet started. The road was populated mostly by early workers, security guards changing shifts, market traders pushing handcarts loaded with goods, cleaners in overalls moving toward the office buildings they would have spotless before anyone important arrived. The people who kept the city running before the city bothered to notice it was running. Gabriel rode among them and felt, as he sometimes did at this hour, a kind of quiet kinship with all of it. He reached Titan Corporate Center at 7:52. He locked his motorcycle in the same spot as the day before. He took off his helmet and stood for a moment looking up at the building. In the early morning light it looked different from how it looked later in the day, less imposing, somehow. The glass walls were catching a softer, pinker light, and the street in front of it was still quiet enough that you could hear birds somewhere above the traffic noise. He walked in. The lobby was quieter than he had seen it. The reception desk had only one person behind it, a young man this time who looked up when Gabriel entered. "I'm here to see Sarah," Gabriel said. "She's expecting me. My name is Gabriel." The young man checked his screen, picked up his phone, spoke briefly and then nodded. "She says to go straight up. 15th floor. She'll meet you at the elevator." Gabriel blinked slightly. He had not known which floor Sarah worked on. The 15th. He filed that information away without comment, walked to the elevator, the main one this time, not the service elevator, and pressed the button. The doors opened. He stepped in. As the elevator rose, Gabriel watched the lobby shrink below him through the glass panel on the side. The young man at reception getting smaller. The potted plants. The marble floor. All of it dropping away beneath him as he rose, floor by floor, toward something he could not fully see yet. The doors opened on 15. Sarah was there. She was already in full work mode, the charcoal suit again, a phone in one hand, a small earpiece in her left ear. She was speaking quietly into it when the doors opened, and she held up one finger toward Gabriel, one moment, finished her sentence, tapped the earpiece and turned to him. "Good morning," she said. "Thank you for being on time." "You said 8 o'clock, Gabriel said. "I did," she said. And again that small, brief, genuine thing that was almost a smile. "Come with me." The 15th floor was nothing like the 4th. Where the 4th floor had been busy and open, full of movement and the low hum of regular office work, the 15th was quieter. Wider. The carpet was thicker. The desks were fewer and further apart. There were real plants here, not the small decorative ones in the lobby, but tall, healthy, well-tended ones that stood in the corners like they had been there for years. The windows on this floor were floor to ceiling, and through them the city spread out in every direction, laid flat and wide under the morning sky. Gabriel followed Sarah through the floor, aware of the looks that came his way, quiet, curious looks from the few people already at their desks. He was still wearing his delivery jacket. The Quick Run logo was still on his back. He kept his head up. Sarah led him to a large corner office at the far end of the floor. She opened the door and gestured for him to enter. He walked in. The office was clean and ordered in the same way Sarah herself was clean and ordered. Nothing unnecessary, everything with a purpose, the kind of space that told you something clear about the person who inhabited it. A wide desk. 2 chairs in front of it. A bookshelf along one wall. And through the floor-to-ceiling windows behind the desk, the city stretching out below like a map of everything that was possible. Sarah closed the door behind them and went around the desk. She did not sit immediately. She stood with her hands resting lightly on the back of her chair and looked at Gabriel. "I spoke to 3 people yesterday after you left," she said. Quietly. Carefully. "As I told you I would." She paused. "What you described, the man, the room, the situation, it is consistent with things that have been quietly noticed by others for some time. Small things individually. But together," she stopped. "Together they form a picture." Gabriel was quiet. "The man you saw," Sarah said, "is David Mercer. He was, the head of the corporate partnerships division on the 4th floor." Gabriel absorbed that. "Your wife," Sarah continued carefully, "is Veronica Carter. She works as a senior administrative coordinator on the same floor. Under his direct supervision. Something about hearing their names said out loud in this room by this woman, formally, factually, made everything feel suddenly more real. More final. Like a document being stamped. "Yes," Gabriel said. Sarah nodded. She pulled out her chair and sat down. She folded her hands on the desk and looked at him directly. "Gabriel, what I am going to tell you now I am telling you as a courtesy, because you came to me honestly and you deserve to know what your honesty has walked into." She held his gaze. "This company has a conduct policy. It is not a small policy buried in a handbook that nobody reads. It is a central part of how we operate. It covers professional relationships between colleagues, the use of company spaces, and the responsibilities that come with positions of authority." She paused. "David Mercer was in a position of significant authority. What you witnessed was a violation of that policy. A serious one." "I didn't come here to get my wife fired," Gabriel said. "I know," Sarah said. "You came here because I asked you to, and because you are an honest man, and honest men tell the truth when asked for it." She looked at him steadily. "But the truth has its own momentum, Gabriel. Once it's in motion, it goes where it needs to go." Gabriel looked at the city through the window behind her desk. All those streets. All those buildings. All those people moving through their ordinary mornings, carrying their ordinary weights, getting on with it. "What happens now?" he asked. Sarah opened a folder on her desk. "Now," she said, "I'm going to ask you to give a formal account of what you witnessed. Not to the police. This is an internal matter at this stage. To our compliance team. It will be documented, it will be treated with complete confidentiality regarding your involvement, and it will be handled by people who know exactly what they are doing." She slid a single sheet of paper across the desk toward him. "This is a witness statement form," she said. "Standard. Simple. It asks for what you saw when you saw it and where. Nothing more than what you already told me yesterday." She paused. "You don't have to sign it today. You can take it away and think about it." Gabriel looked at the form. He thought about Veronica's voice in the kitchen. Flat. Final. Without a gram of remorse. Keep your mediocre love. And your poverty. He thought about the photo face down in the drawer. He thought about what Sarah had said yesterday. People who are that naturally honest are rare. He reached across the desk and picked up the pen that was lying beside the form. He read the form through once, slowly and carefully, the way he read everything, delivery addresses, cancellation notices, the small print on his employment contract. He did not rush. He made sure he understood every line. Then he signed it. He set the pen down and slid the form back across the desk. Sarah looked at it, then at him. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Don't thank me," Gabriel said. "I just told the truth." "I know," she said. "That's why I'm thanking you." She closed the folder. She sat back in her chair slightly, just a fraction the way a person sits back when one difficult thing has been completed and they are gathering themselves for what comes next. "There's one more thing," she said. Gabriel waited. "I'd like to offer you some work," she said. "Not charity. Not pity. Real work with real pay doing real things." She looked at him evenly. I've been looking for someone to run our internal courier and logistics coordination. It's not a glamorous title, but it's a stable position. It comes with a salary, not a per delivery fee. It comes with an office, a small one on the 3rd floor. And it comes with the kind of future that a man like you should have been building for a while now. The room was very quiet. Gabriel looked at her. Why? He said. Sarah looked back at him without blinking. Because in the last 3 days, she said, I have watched you stop for someone who needed help when you didn't have to. I have watched you tell the truth when it would have been far easier to say nothing. I have watched you sit across from me and speak with the kind of dignity that most people in this building spent years trying to perform and never quite manage. She paused. I don't hire qualifications, Gabriel. I hire character. And yours has shown me more than enough. Gabriel sat very still. Outside the window, the city was fully awake now. The light had shifted from pink to gold. Traffic moved far below in both directions. Somewhere out there, delivery riders were checking their apps and strapping on their bags and joining the flow of a day that would ask a great deal from them and return very little. He had been one of them this morning. He looked at Sarah. Can I have a day to think about it? He said. Of course, she said. He stood up. She stood up. They shook hands across the desk. One more thing, Gabriel said, pausing at the door. David Mercer and Veronica. When does the process start? Sarah looked at him with that calm, clear gaze. It already has, she said. Gabriel rode home with the weight of the morning sitting on him like something physical. Not a heavy weight. Not a crushing one. More like the weight of a coat you have just put on. Substantial, present, something you are aware of with every movement. Something that changes the way you carry yourself without stopping you from moving. He did not go straight home. He found himself, without quite deciding to, riding toward the small park he had stopped at on the day everything happened. The patch of tired grass and the 2 forgotten benches at the edge of the city that nobody seemed to visit. He parked his motorcycle, sat down on one of the benches and looked at the grass for a while. He thought about Sarah's offer. A salary. An office. A future, she had called it. The kind of future a man like him should have been building for a while now. Those words had landed somewhere deep and quiet inside him, and they were still sitting there, still sending out small ripples. He wanted to say yes. He knew that. He had known it the moment she said it, sitting across from him in that big corner office with the city spread out behind her like a promise. But he was careful about wanting things too quickly. Life had taught him that the things that arrived fast sometimes left the same way. He wanted to sit with it for a day. Turn it over. Make sure it was real and not the kind of thing that looks real in the morning light and reveals its cracks by evening. He sat on the bench for 20 minutes. Then he rode home, made himself lunch, and waited. He did not have to wait long. He was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea when his phone buzzed. Not a message. A call. A number he did not recognize, but with the same city code as Titan Corporate Center. He picked up. Gabriel Carter? A man's voice. Formal, measured, the voice of someone who made calls like this regularly. Yes, Gabriel said. This is the compliance office at Titan Corporate Center. My name is Howard. I'm calling to let you know that your witness statement has been received and logged. We may be in touch if we require any further clarification, but at this stage your involvement is complete. Everything from here will be handled internally. A brief pause. I also want to assure you that your statement is being treated with full confidentiality. Your name will not appear in any documentation shared with the individuals involved. Thank you, Gabriel said. Thank you, Mr. Carter. The call ended. Gabriel set his phone down on the table and looked at it. It already has, Sarah had said. He picked up his tea. It had gone cold. He drank it anyway. What happened next, Gabriel did not witness directly. He was not in the building when it happened. He was not in the room. He did not see the faces or hear the voices or watch the moment unfold in real time. But he heard about it. And over the days that followed, as pieces of it reached him through different channels, he was able to put together a picture of how it went. It started at 2 o'clock that same afternoon. David Mercer was called into a meeting on the 15th floor. He was told it was a routine leadership review, the kind of thing that happened periodically and meant nothing. He came in relaxed, confident, carrying the easy assurance of a man who had spent years being told he was important and had long since started to believe it without question. The meeting was not a leadership review. It was Sarah, 2 members of the compliance team, and a woman from the legal department who said very little but wrote everything down. On the table between them was a folder. Inside the folder was the witness statement Gabriel had signed that morning, along with a collection of other documents, records, reports, things that had been quietly noticed over time and stored away by people who were observant and patient and had been waiting for the right moment. David Mercer's confidence lasted about 4 minutes. Then the folder was opened. Then the documents were laid out one by one. Then the questions began, careful, precise, unemotional questions that left very little room for the kind of charming deflection he had always relied on. He tried charm anyway. It did not work. He tried denial. That did not work either. The documents were specific. The dates were specific. The witness account was specific. He tried anger. The particular anger of a powerful man who has never been held accountable and cannot quite believe that it is happening now. He raised his voice. He used words like preposterous and completely inappropriate and do you know who I am? Sarah let him finish. Then she slid one final document across the table toward him. His termination letter. It had already been signed. Veronica was called in at 3:30. She did not know what was coming. She had spent the day at her desk the way she spent every day, efficient, composed, doing her job well because whatever else Veronica was, she was not a woman who did her job badly. She walked into the meeting room on the 4th floor, not the 15th, a smaller room with 2 compliance officers and her direct manager, and she sat down and folded her hands in her lap the way she always did when she wanted to appear calm. The compliance officers were kind. That was the thing she had not expected. They were not cold, not aggressive, not dramatic. They simply laid out what they knew, what had been observed, and what it meant in terms of the company's conduct policy. Her relationship with David Mercer had not been a secret to everyone, it turned out. It had been noticed. Quietly, carefully noticed by more than one person over more than a few months. What had been missing until now was a formal account that could be acted upon. Now they had one. The conduct policy was clear. A relationship between a senior manager and a direct subordinate, conducted in company spaces, during working hours without disclosure, it was a violation. Multiple violations in fact. The kind that the company took seriously, not for the sake of drama, but because the integrity of the working environment was something Sarah had built this company around and was not willing to compromise. Veronica listened to all of it. She did not cry. She did not beg. Those who were in the room that day said later that she sat very straight and very still and listened to everything with an expression that was difficult to read. Not quite defiance, not quite resignation, but something complicated and private moving behind her eyes that none of them could fully name. At the end, the compliance officer on the left slid a document across the table. Veronica looked at it. Her termination letter. She looked at it for a long moment. Then she picked up the pen that was offered to her and signed the acknowledgement section at the bottom, the part that said she had received the letter and understood its contents. She signed it the way she did everything. Neatly. Precisely. With no wasted movement. She stood up. She shook no one's hand. She walked back to her desk, took her personal items, her phone charger, her small plant, her extra pair of shoes, put them in a bag and walked out of Titan Corporate Center for the last time. The security guard held the door for her. She did not look back. Gabriel found out that evening. Not from anyone at the company, they had been true to their word about confidentiality. He found out from Veronica herself. She came home at 5 o'clock, which was earlier than she had been coming home all week. He heard the key in the lock and looked up from where he was sitting by the window. She came in and stood in the middle of the room. She still had the bag with her personal items from her desk. The small plant sat on top of it, slightly lopsided from the journey. Gabriel looked at her. She looked at him. And in that moment, in the way her shoulders were sitting, in the set of her jaw, in the particular stillness of someone who has just had the ground removed from beneath them and has not yet decided how to feel about it, Gabriel understood exactly what had happened. He said nothing. Veronica set the bag down slowly. She sat on the couch. She put her hands in her lap and looked at the floor. The ceiling fan wobbled overhead. The evening light came through the curtains in long, warm strips. Somewhere down the alley, the same dog from the other night was barking again at something invisible. "I lost my job today," Veronica said. Her voice was flat. Not cold the way it had been in the kitchen that night. Just flat. Empty. Like a room that had been cleared of everything. Gabriel was quiet for a moment. "I'm sorry," he said. She looked up at him sharply. Like the words had surprised her. Like she had been expecting something else entirely. Satisfaction, perhaps, or anger, or the particular cruelty of someone returning what they have been given. "Are you?" she said. "Yes," Gabriel said simply. "I'm sorry it went this way." Veronica looked at him for a long moment. Something moved across her face. Complicated, layered, the kind of thing that does not have a clean name. Then she looked back at the floor. David also lost his position, she said. I heard, Gabriel said. He had not heard. But he had known. Another silence. Was it you? She asked. Quietly. Without accusation. Just the question lay between them like a stone. Gabriel looked at her steadily. I told the truth, he said. To someone who asked for it. Veronica nodded slowly. Just once. She did not argue with that. She did not rage at him or call him a betrayer or reach for any of the weapons that people reach for in moments like this. She just nodded, slowly, once, like a person accepting a verdict they had known was coming. She picked up her bag from the floor. She carried it to the bedroom. The door closed behind her. Not a slam. Just a close. Gabriel turned back to the window and looked out at the evening city. The light was beautiful at this hour. The kind of light that made even the hard parts of the city look like they had been painted by someone who cared. He sat there and watched it until the sun was gone. Gabriel called Sarah the next morning. He had slept better than he had in weeks. Not perfectly. He woke once around 3, lay in the dark for a while listening to the city breathe, then drifted back down. But when the morning came, it came cleanly, without the heavy dragging feeling he had grown used to. He lay there for a moment, aware of something different in the apartment. A new quality to the silence. Then he understood what it was. Veronica was gone. Not in the way she had been gone these past weeks, present in body but absent in every way that mattered. Actually gone. The bedroom door was open, which it never was in the mornings, and the room beyond it had the particular emptiness of a space that has been properly vacated. He got up and looked. The wardrobe, the one that never closed properly, was hanging open. The clothes were gone. The second suitcase that lived under the bed was gone. The small things on the dressing table were gone. She had left in the night, quietly while he slept. She had not woken him. She had not left a note. She had simply gathered what remained of her things and walked out of the apartment and out of his life as neatly and precisely as she did everything else. Gabriel stood in the bedroom doorway for a moment. He waited to feel something large. Some wave of grief or rage or loss that would knock him sideways. But what came instead was something quieter and more complicated than any of that. A sadness, yes. Real and honest, because 4 years of a life shared with another person does not disappear without leaving something behind, and Gabriel was not the kind of man who pretended otherwise. But underneath the sadness, something else. Something that felt, cautiously and carefully, like the first breath of clean air after a long time in a closed room. He went to the kitchen. He made his tea. He sat at the table for a few minutes, hands around the warm cup, looking at the kitchen the way you look at a place when you are seeing it with new eyes. The damp patch on the wall. The wobbling fan. The drawer with the old receipts and forgotten pens, where he had put the photo face down. He got up. He opened the drawer. He took out the photo. He looked at it for a long time, at her bright eyes, at his own younger face, at their joined hands. He looked at it with honesty and without bitterness, the way a person looks at a chapter of their life that is genuinely over. There had been good things in it. Real things. The bus stop. The lopsided cake. The evenings that were easy. Those things had happened and they had been real and no version of the ending could take them back. But the chapter was closed. He put the photo back in the drawer. Not face down this time. Just resting there, among the receipts and the pens, taking up its small, honest amount of space. He closed the drawer. He picked up his phone and called Sarah. She answered on the second ring. Gabriel, she said. Calm and direct the way she always was. I've thought about it, he said. And? Yes, he said. My answer is yes. A brief pause. Not the pause of surprise. Sarah did not seem like a woman who was surprised very often. More the pause of someone setting something in motion deliberately, with full awareness of what they are doing. Good, she said. Can you come in today? Not to start, just to go through the paperwork and see the space. I can come in at 10, Gabriel said. 10 o'clock, she said. I'll let reception know. He ended the call. He sat for a moment at the kitchen table, phone in hand, looking at nothing in particular. Then he got up, went to the bathroom and shaved properly for the first time in a week. He found the cleanest shirt he owned, a plain white one he kept for occasions that rarely came, and put it on under his jacket. He looked at himself in the bathroom mirror. Same face. Same scar above the left eyebrow. Same honest eyes. But something behind them had settled. Quieted. Like a river after a storm, when the water is still moving but the violence has passed and what is left is just the current. Steady, purposeful, going somewhere. He picked up his helmet and went out. He arrived at Titan Corporate Center at 5 to 10. He locked his motorcycle in his usual spot. He took off his helmet and stood for a moment looking up at the building, the way he had done before. But this time it was different. This time he was not arriving with a delivery bag and a signature to collect. He was arriving as himself, Gabriel Carter, with nothing to deliver except his own answer to someone who had asked him a real question and was waiting for a real response. He walked in. The receptionist, a young woman today bright-eyed and efficient, looked up when he gave his name. "Mr. Carter," she said. And that was different too. Not the delivery man for floor 4. Not sign here. Mr. Carter. 2 words that carried, in the way she said them, the simple information that he was expected and that his arrival mattered. He rode the main elevator to the 15th floor. Sarah met him at the doors again, but this time she was not on a call. She was simply standing there, waiting, which somehow said more than any formal welcome could have. "Good morning," she said. "Good morning," Gabriel said. She led him first to a small office on the 3rd floor. His office, if he took the position which he already had. It was not large. A desk, a chair, a window that looked out not at the grand spread of the city but at a quieter side street below, where a woman was walking a small brown dog and a man was unloading boxes from a van. Gabriel stood at the window and looked at the man with the boxes. "You were that man 6 days ago," Sarah said from behind him. "I was that man this morning," Gabriel said. "The motorcycle is still outside." "For now," Sarah said. He turned from the window and looked at the desk. Cling. Empty. Waiting. He sat down in the chair behind it, slowly, like a man testing whether something is real before he commits his full weight to it. It held. He looked up at Sarah standing in the doorway. "Tell me what the job actually involves," he said. And she did. She pulled the other chair forward and sat across from him. Not behind a grand desk this time, just 2 people in a small room talking plainly about real things. She told him about the logistics coordination, the courier network the company used, the problems they had been having with reliability and communication, the gap between what the system said was happening and what was actually happening on the ground. She told him that what they needed was not someone who understood spreadsheets and reports, but someone who understood the ground itself. The roads. The riders. The gap between an address on a screen and a package in someone's hands. Gabriel listened to everything. He asked 3 questions. They were good questions. Practical, specific, the questions of someone who has actually done the work and knows where the problems live. Sarah answered all 3 without hesitation. When they were done, she stood and extended her hand. "Welcome," she said. Gabriel stood and shook it. He started the following Monday. The first week was strange in the way that all new things are strange, full of small uncertainties, unfamiliar rhythms, the particular disorientation of a body that is used to moving through open streets all day suddenly being asked to exist within walls and corridors and meeting rooms. He made mistakes. Small ones. He asked questions when he was unsure rather than guessing, which some people in offices found refreshing and others found mildly puzzling, because they had grown used to a culture of pretending to know. But he learned quickly. He had always learned quickly. It was one of the things the delivery job had given him without him realizing, the ability to read a new situation fast, to find the logic in an unfamiliar system, to move efficiently through uncertainty without panicking. By the end of the second week, he had already identified 3 gaps in the courier network that nobody had formally documented but everyone had quietly worked around for years. He wrote them up in a plain, simple report and left it on Sarah's desk without ceremony. She read it the same day. She came to his small office on the 3rd floor that afternoon and stood in the doorway. "How long did this take you?" she said, holding up the report. "A few evenings," Gabriel said. "After hours." She looked at the report. Then at him. Then back at the report. "Fix all 3, she said. "Whatever you need." She left. Gabriel turned back to his desk and got to work. The apartment changed too in those weeks. Without Veronica's presence, without the particular tension of sharing a space with someone who has already left in every way that matters, the small room settled into a different kind of quiet. Not lonely exactly. Gabriel had discovered, somewhat to his own surprise, that he did not mind being alone. He had always been a man who carried his own company reasonably well. He fixed the wardrobe door. He had been meaning to do it for 2 years and had never had the time or the heart for it. One Saturday morning he got a screwdriver, tightened the hinges, adjusted the latch, and closed the door. It stayed closed. He stood there looking at it for a moment with a satisfaction that was entirely out of proportion to the task and yet felt completely appropriate. He bought 2 new dinner plates to replace the ones Veronica had taken. He moved the kitchen table closer to the window so he could see the alley when he ate. Small things. Ordinary things. The things that a person does when they are quietly, without any drama, beginning again. He saw Veronica once about a month later. He was walking back from a shop on Clement Road on a Saturday afternoon when he saw her coming out of a pharmacy on the other side of the street. She was alone. She was wearing the yellow dress, the one she had been wearing at the bus stop the day they met, and she was carrying a small paper bag and looking at her phone as she walked. She did not see him. Gabriel stopped on the pavement and watched her for a moment. Not with longing. Not with anger. With the simple, honest attention of a person looking at something that used to be theirs and is no longer, and finding that they can do it without falling apart. She looked, he thought, like someone who was figuring things out. The easy confidence she had carried at Titan Corporate Center, the certainty that the life she wanted was already within reach, that was gone. In its place was something more careful, more tentative. Something that looked, if he was being generous, a little like the beginning of humility. He hoped, in a quiet and genuine way that surprised him, that she would be all right. Not because he wanted her back. He did not. That door had closed, and it had closed for good, and he had made his peace with it. But because wanting bad things to happen to people who had hurt you was a weight he had decided not to carry. It was too heavy and it went nowhere, and Gabriel had learned, in the last several weeks, to be very deliberate about what he chose to carry. He watched her turn the corner and disappear. Then he walked home. 3 months after he started at Titan Corporate Center, Sarah called him into her office. He came in and sat across from her desk, the wide desk with the city behind it, and waited. "You've been here 90 days, she said. "I know," Gabriel said. "In 90 days, she said, looking at a paper in front of her, "you have rebuilt the courier coordination system from the ground up, recovered an average of 11% of our monthly logistics budget through efficiency improvements, resolved a dispute with our primary courier partner that had been sitting unresolved for 8 months, and written what our operations team is now calling the clearest internal process document they have ever seen." She set the paper down and looked at him. "And you've done all of this while asking for nothing extra and complaining about nothing." Gabriel said nothing. "I'm promoting you," Sarah said. "Head of Logistics Operations. Company-wide. It comes with a new salary, I've written the number on that paper there, you can look at it in a moment, and a seat at the operations table." Gabriel looked at her steadily. "Is this because of what I did for you?" he asked. "The statement. The truth." Sarah shook her head. "What you did with the statement got you in the door," she said. "What you did in the 90 days after that earned you this chair." She held his gaze. "I don't reward loyalty, Gabriel. I reward results. And honesty. And the rare combination of both." She paused. "You have shown me all three." Gabriel sat quietly for a moment. Through the window behind her, the city was doing what it always did. Moving, breathing, going about its enormous and indifferent business. Somewhere out there, riders were on their motorcycles, checking apps, picking up packages, eating bananas on the side of the road while customers canceled orders and the city rushed past without looking at them. He had been that man. He was still that man in all the ways that mattered. The honesty had not changed. The steadiness had not changed. The reflex to do the right thing simply because it was right, that had not changed either, and he did not want it to. Those things were not things he had done in order to get here. They were simply who he was. And who he was had turned out, against all the odds of a city that was not known for rewarding such things, to be exactly enough. He leaned forward and looked at the paper. He read the number. He sat back. "All right," he said. Sarah almost smiled. "Just all right?" "All right and thank you," Gabriel said. And then he did smile. Fully, genuinely, the smile of a man who has been through something real and come out the other side of it not bitter but clearer. And yes. He rode the motorcycle home that evening for what he already knew would be one of the last times. He would get a car soon, a practical one, nothing flashy. The motorcycle had served him well and he would not pretend otherwise. It had carried him through years of hard mornings and canceled orders and long days in the sun and rain, and it had never let him down when he needed it to keep moving. He rode slowly, taking the long way, through the streets he knew best. Clement Road, where the bakery smell hit you half a block away. Whitfield Street, where the school children in blue uniforms would be long gone at this hour but where he could still picture them. The quiet street near the edge of the business district, where Mr. Aldridge's house sat small and neat behind its low gate. He stopped there. He knocked on Mr. Aldridge's door. The old man answered after a moment, blinking at him in the evening light with the careful recognition of someone whose eyesight was not what it used to be. "The delivery boy," Mr. Aldridge said. "Not anymore," Gabriel said. "I just came to say hello." Mr. Aldridge looked at him for a moment. Then he opened the door wider. "Well," he said. "I've just put the kettle on." Gabriel leaned his motorcycle against the gate, took off his helmet and went inside. He stayed for 40 minutes. He drank tea and ate 2 biscuits and listened to Mr. Aldridge talk about the street 30 years ago and his cat and the weather and the way the city was always changing but somehow always stayed the same underneath. And Gabriel listened the way he always listened, completely, without rushing, without looking at his phone. When he left, Mr. Aldridge stood in the doorway and watched him go. "Come back," the old man said. "Whenever you like." "I will," Gabriel said. And he meant it. He got home as the last of the evening light was leaving the sky. He made dinner. Real dinner this time. He had been cooking properly for himself these past weeks, discovering that he was better at it than he had known, that there was a quiet satisfaction in feeding yourself well when you had spent so long eating whatever was quickest and cheapest. He made rice and stew and sat at the kitchen table by the window and ate slowly, watching the alley below. After dinner he washed his plate, dried it, put it back. He sat in the chair by the window for a while, the way he had come to do in the evenings, not thinking about anything in particular. Just being there, in his own apartment, in his own quiet, in the space he had kept clean and decent through everything. He thought about where he had been 3 months ago. He thought about the banana on the side of the road, the cancelled order, the photo in the drawer, the 4th floor hallway and the sound of a laugh he had recognized and the quiet click of something breaking inside him that he had carried all the way home without making a sound. He thought about what he had said to Veronica in the kitchen the morning after. "I did nothing wrong. I worked. I was honest. I came home every night. Whatever is broken here, I did not break it." He had believed it then. He believed it still. He thought about Sarah's office, the city behind her desk, the form he had signed with a plain pen in a quiet room because telling the truth was simply what he did, even when it cost him something. Especially then. He thought about the small office on the 3rd floor with the window that looked out at the side street, the man with the boxes and the delivery van, the woman walking the small brown dog. He thought about the number on the paper. He sat quietly with all of it for a long time. Then he got up, turned off the kitchen light and went to bed. He set no alarm. For the first time in years he did not need one. He was not chasing the day anymore. The day was his and it would be there when he woke and it would hold what it held, and he would meet it the way he had always met everything. Honestly, steadily, with his head up and his hands ready. He closed his eyes. Outside the city made its noise. The same noise it always made. Engines and horns and voices and the 1,000 ordinary sounds of 10,000 ordinary lives being lived in the same crowded, difficult, beautiful place. Gabriel listened to it for a moment. And then, quietly and completely, he slept. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share and comment on the lessons you've learned. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in my next video.